In this video I will show you the two sorts of quizzes that you can create on the VLE. There are two types. There's a mobile compatible test and there's a standard test. We'll look at the mobile compatible test first. These quizzes will work via the Blackboard Learn mobile app, so they're very mobile friendly and they can be used as a trigger for adaptive release. So for example, a student completes a quiz and they get access to more resources. And they can also be used for tracking progress, but they do not provide feedback to students, so they don't actually see which answers are correct and which ones are wrong, and there's a little bit of a convoluted way for them to get a percentage score back as well. So they are not ideal in terms of providing feedback to students, but they are useful if you're just trying to provide a small widget for them to focus their learning. So they're best used for multiple choice questions and are not useful for text entry or inputted answer type questions. So if you're asking a student to type in something, it's probably best not to use the mobile test feature. But anyway, here is how you set up a mobile compatible quiz. In edit mode within your VLE site, go to Assessments and Mobile Compatible Test. You'll then have a screen to fill in. So you put in your title of the test and your description and put in any information as to the purpose of the test, whether it's going to form part of their summative marks, for example, and also if there's any adaptive release rules. So for example, if you're going to use the test, they have to complete the test to get access to further information. Fill in instructions, and if you do have problems sort of scrolling down with the menu on the side, just use the scroll wheel on your mouse, or if you click somewhere in the middle and then pull the mouse down, you'll then be able to see the rest of the form. It's a little bit of a bug on Chrome, so just be aware of that. Set the quiz to be available if you want it to be visible to the students. You can set release dates and times, and you can also set a deadline so that the students have to complete it by a certain time or it'll be marked late. Also set the number of attempts. Now I normally set this to unlimited so that students can keep going back to the quiz after they've completed it. But if you want to use like a score from their first attempt, then you might want to restrict that access so you're only using the initial value. Click Save Settings and then your quiz will start being created. You start with a very blank empty page. At the very top you get the clues as to what you can do. The quick question types are available on the top left, and the test settings, so the description and the release dates and things like that, they're in the top right side on the button there, test settings. So we're going to start by adding a question in. So I'm going to add a multiple choice question first of all, just choosing multiple choice from the add question menu. Type in my question, and you can only have plain text questions in this particular quiz. So we're going to put some answers in. You have to have 2 as a minimum, obviously, but if you want to add more, then you can use the plus icons to add in your extra answers. You have to set the correct answer using the toggles on the left side, and then that's the question done. It saves as you go along, so you don't need to click any additional save buttons. But if you're doing a complicated question and you want to make sure you don't lose your changes, then you can click Save Progress. I'm just going to add another sort of question now, which is particularly suited for mobile devices. This is the hotspot question type. So from Add Question, I'm going to choose Hotspot. The hotspot is an image question where students are asked to locate on the image the answer to the question. Let's give an example here. I'm going to upload a photo of campus and I'm going to ask students to point out where Central Hall is. So you type in your question text and then you can upload your image. Images must be below 1400 pixels wide and 1400 pixels high, and they also have to be less than 2 megabytes in size. So I'm going to choose my image and then upload it. A pop-up will appear. It might take a little bit of time for the image to load, but if it does, that's fine. Just be patient and it will appear. And then all I need to do now is drag on a box. So just click on the image and drag an area on the image. And this area here is what I'll call the correct answer area. So if a student clicks within this area, then they will get the answer correctly. So you want to leave a little bit of tolerance around as well, particularly if you're using touchscreen devices on mobile phones. A large area is better than a small area. So click update, and you get a preview of the image and the red area that's going to be accepted as the correct answer. Students don't see this area, they will just see the image and the question, and they'll be invited to click on the image. Then you can obviously click Save at Progress, you don't need to, before you move on to create another question. So the final question I'm going to create in this particular example is fill in multiple blanks. So from Add Question, I'm selecting Fill in Multiple Blanks. This is best suited if you've got a large chunk of text and students are going to fill in blank areas with the correct word. So this is an example here. So with your sentence or paragraph in there, you select the text that you want to be converted to a blank, and then click the Make Blank from Selected Text button. So I'm going to do that in 2 cases here. And I'd advise, if you do have any sort of odd answers, for example this one here's got an apostrophe in, that you make sure that clue is given to the students so they don't have to worry about whether to put the apostrophe in or not. So what's going to happen here is for the students, they will see a blank for 800 and a blank for Clifford, and they will have to type in as exactly as you've done here. It's not case sensitive, but they will have to put in 800 or Clifford as it is written there. Those are my questions. I can reorder them by dragging the side toggle, and I can also save and close to complete my quiz, and that will be published to the students there. So looking at the student view of this, now obviously this is designed for the mobile interface, but we'll look at this particular quiz using the standard VLE interface. The student goes in and they will begin the test, and then they have the questions below. So you can see here your instructions appeared at the top, and a description of what the test is about is also featuring at the top. It also allows tells students how many attempts they can have on this quiz. So for example, this one here to do with Central Hall, I'm going to click Central Hall, a little marker appears. I'm going to type in here 800 in text rather than the numbers that we had before, and I'm going to put in Clifford's there without the capital letter just to see that works. And I'm going to choose the correct answer for the best hot beverage, and then I'm going to click Save and Submit. So the student will click OK to submit the answers, and then I get told that I have completed it. I click OK as a student, and I get 25 out of 30 points. Unfortunately, they don't know where they've gone wrong, and this is the downfall of the mobile test system. So whilst it is good for getting students to engage with and thinking about the questions in the mobile app, it is actually quite pointless on the main usual VLE interface. And that's why we have our standard tests. These tests are accessed through the Tools menu, and it's just labelled Test there. So to add a standard test, go to Tools, Test, whilst you're in edit mode, and we'll create our better test. So if you've already got tests in your site, you can just select one here, but we'll create a new one. Type in the name and description. Also include your instructions, which will appear at the top of the test, and then click Submit. So you've set up there the test shell, and now we need to add questions to the test. So here we create a new question, and you'll see we have many more options here for questions. You can consult the guide which goes through these in more detail, but I'll just give you an example of the multiple choice version. You don't necessarily need a question title, but you do need a question text, so I'm going to add that in here. And you can actually include images and links within this question as well. You then go down to the options, and it gives you a few options here about how these answers will be numbered. I'm going to label mine ABC, and it allows me to orientate my answers vertically or horizontally. I'm going to keep them as vertical. I can offer partial credit, I can arrange the answers in a random order if I wanted to, and I can specify the number of answers I'm going to have as part of my multiple choice question. Now, for this answer here, the actual answers need to be 4 minimum answers, so just be aware of that. So with my answers entered in, I will choose the correct answer using the button on the left side, and then I can also provide some feedback. Now this is really useful if you've got a form of question which doesn't necessarily have a right answer, or it has multiple right answers, or there's a slight misinterpretation of an answer. You can provide feedback to the student in written format here. So this is the response that will appear if the student gets the answer correct. So you can refer to the things you've already referred to, and if you get a student who's got an incorrect response, you can prompt them to reconsider their answer the next time round. So you could also add in here references to a book chapter or a specific lecture that provides the answer or indicates suggestions to the correct answer when you're providing this incorrect response feedback. So scrolling down, you can ignore the categories and keywords area. You can ignore the instructor's notes area unless you're, if you need to keep notes of why you've done a question a particular way. And then click submit. Now that will then create that question and add it to your quiz. So you can see there it is appearing. If you need to change the question, hover over it and use the little arrow to edit the question. That will take you back to the editing page for that individual question. So we're going to create another question here. This time it's going to be an essay type question. So from the create question menu, choose essay, and this will provide a box for students to type in a chunk of text which will require manual marking if you actually want to give it a grade, or you can provide a model answer, an exemplar response as feedback, and then students can judge themselves whether they've got the question right or wrong. So I'm going to add the question text in here, type in your question, and again you can use other resources. You can add links, you can add videos, you can add images as well. So that could be just a simple question, or it could be a slightly more complicated question where they have to think a bit more detail. Students will provide an answer, but you can provide a model answer here, and that should allow students to compare their results, or you could use this space to refer them to other resources. Once you've entered those two key elements, scroll down and click submit, and that will add the question to your quiz. You can drag questions up and down in the usual way by hovering over the question and using the toggle on the left. So with those two example questions, I'm going to click OK, and that's going to save my quiz. Now I've been brought back to the link creation. Just like the blogs and the wikis, creating a quiz, a standard quiz, is a two-step process. You create the quiz and then you create the link to it. So my standard test example for the demo is there. I'm going to select that from the list and then click submit. And that will take us to this page, which will provide the link. So again, I can make this test available, which I will do there. I can specify the number of attempts that are going to be allowed, and I can specify any restrictions here. So I'm going to allow unlimited attempts, and I'm not going to specify a due date, and I want to make sure that students see the different feedback that's available to them, in particular the feedback that I've written, whether they've got the answer right or wrong. So make sure you check those as well. If you want to obviously restrict that, then you can do. I also like to present the whole quiz at once, and I want to randomise the questions. So the settings there in the creation of the link, there's the test options page, and once I've done those, I'm going to click submit. If you need to make changes to your quiz, then if you hover over the link as you normally would in edit mode and click the little arrow, you have two edit options here. Edit the test will allow you to actually change the questions, and edit the test options will allow you to change the link to the test and things like how many attempts people can have and what sorts of feedback results will be provided to the students. From a student point of view, this is what they will see when they go into the quiz. They'll be invited to begin the quiz, and then they work their way through. So for example, I'm going to provide a wrong answer there and a written response here. I'm going to save and submit, and I can click, when I click OK, I will get my results. And this time, unlike the mobile quiz, I actually get some meaningful feedback. So I get the correct answer, I get the wrong answer, I get some feedback here. So perhaps if I was setting up the quiz, I would have not shown the correct answer, but just provided the response feedback. And then my model answer that I've typed in will appear there so that the student can compare their written response with the model answer. So we've covered their standard tests, which are useful for providing feedback to students as they would integrate the correct or incorrect responses, and they have the opportunity to provide additional text feedback or sample answers. They can be used to trigger adaptive release, and students can review their answers and feedback when they return to the quiz point. So we've covered two types of quiz: the mobile compatible quizzes, which are not useful for providing feedback but are useful for releasing adaptive release content, best used for multiple choice questions and very short text entry and hotspot type questions. The standard tests are useful for providing feedback to student, detailed feedback, and can be used on all devices, but they work best on laptops and standard computers. The quizzes also have the function of viewing students' responses, and you can do this as an instructor within a VLE site. If you go to the Grade Center from the control panel and choose Full Grade Center, this is the easiest way of seeing lots of different responses. If you scroll along, you will actually see that your new quizzes have columns available, and here we can see my example mobile test features there and my standard test. I've got a few other tests in this module site, and you can see the score that's been automatically generated. Something with the green icon indicates that it's actually probably got an entry which is like a text entry, so like that essay question, and therefore I have to view this if I wanted to give it a grade. So to view that response, I can hover over the box, click on the icon, and then look at that particular attempt. So if I'm using the quiz system to grade students, I will do that there, and then I can provide some feedback and give some points out of 10. I can also provide feedback to the student in relation to the whole quiz. So for example, if they've not got questions right on a particular topic area, I can provide that feedback too. But it is important to note that this is only part of the process, because the students could just use the automated feedback that you provide when you're setting up the quiz itself. So you don't necessarily have to go through every quiz and sort of provide an individual response. That's just something extra, and only really needed if you wanted to provide additional feedback on written responses, long written responses. So you can click submit, and that will go back to the Grade Center, and students can actually collect these results when they go into the quiz itself. So if we look from the student point of view again, they can pick up their additional feedback and the answers that I might have put into their long written questions by going back into the result and actually clicking begin, and then clicking OK to view the results from their last attempt. And you can see here it's now been graded as 10 out of 20, and my additional feedback has been provided.